I never dated here because I saw vicariously through my roommate how terrible it was. Somehow getting drinks was the replacement of having coffee and breakfast.
Picture of Erika Kirk with a ponytail and from her past. That person matches who I saw at Fort Huachuca in the lobby the night before, and she was with that man in the lobby. And that man, he was present at that meeting.
What if the controversy wasn't just about a relationship, but about blood ties, reputation, and explosive new allegations that dragged someone's name into questions no one saw coming? According to what's spreading online right now, Charlie Kirk's parents are allegedly pushing for a DNA test, and the reason has shocked social media. The story began circulating after a leaked tape purportedly showed Erika Kirk in a compromising situation with an ex-partner, a clip that some viewers interpreted as evidence of infidelity. That interpretation alone was enough to set off a firestorm, but it didn't stop there. Critics online claim the tape implies more than just a personal mistake. They say it suggests a possible paternity issue, a rumor so intense that Charlie Kirk's parents are allegedly urging a DNA test to confirm or deny any biological connection. Again, no legal filing, no court order, no verified test results have been publicly released, only online claims and reaction. And once that combination of leak plus insinuation plus paternity speculation hit the internet, the narrative exploded. Supporters called it absurd, critics called it confirmation bias, and everyone else simply watched the story take on a life of its own, with some viewers arguing that even discussing such allegations crosses a line. Here's the uncomfortable part: the DNA claim doesn't need proof to be shared. All it needs is accusation plus intrigue plus emotional reaction. So now the question isn't just did this happen, it's why is the story gaining traction even without official evidence? The moment the so-called leaked tape began circulating, the internet did what it always does best. It filled in gaps faster than facts could. The clip itself, which has not been verified by any independent source, doesn't come with timestamps, context, or confirmation. Yet within hours, it was being framed as proof of infidelity involving Erika Kirk and an alleged ex-partner. What's critical to understand is this: the tape alone does not state what people are claiming it proves. There is no audio explaining identities, no on-screen confirmation, no surrounding evidence. What exists is a short piece of content that viewers interpreted through an already heated narrative. And interpretation is where everything shifted. Online commentators began labeling the clip as exposure, even though exposure requires confirmation. That framing immediately pushed the clip from questionable footage into assumed evidence. Once that leap happened, speculation no longer needed verification, it needed momentum. Momentum arrived quickly. The tape was reposted with captions suggesting cheating. Those captions were reposted with commentary implying deception. And then came the most explosive escalation: paternity speculation. Not because the clip showed anything related to a child, it didn't, but because once cheating is implied, audiences often leap to the most extreme possible conclusion. That leap is where Charlie Kirk's parents entered the narrative. According to online claims, again, not supported by public documentation, Charlie Kirk's parents were said to be pushing for a DNA test. There is no recording of them saying this. No statement released, no legal motion filed. What exists is hearsay amplified by reaction culture. So how did such a serious allegation gain traction so fast? First, family involvement raises stakes. The moment parents are mentioned, the story stops being about a relationship and becomes about lineage, legacy, and identity. That alone increases virality. Second, DNA language sounds authoritative. DNA testing implies science, certainty, and truth. When people hear DNA, they assume legitimacy, even when no test has been ordered, conducted, or discussed by the people involved. Third, the rumor benefited from stacking narratives. Earlier controversies involving Erika primed audiences to believe new accusations without scrutiny. When stories stack, skepticism drops. Each new claim feels like confirmation instead of a separate allegation. But here's what often gets ignored. No leaked tape has established paternity questions. No parent has publicly demanded a DNA test. No legal authority has been involved. What exists is a reaction chain. One interpretation triggered another. One caption justified another. One assumption validated the next. This is how rumors mature into facts online. Another factor is visual ambiguity. The tape's lack of clarity allowed viewers to project their own conclusions. Some said the person was Erika, others said it wasn't, some claimed it was recent, others said it was old. That ambiguity should have slowed the conversation, instead it accelerated it. Why? Because ambiguity is fuel. Clear footage limits speculation. Unclear footage invites imagination, and imagination online tends to go extreme. Once the DNA angle entered the discourse, the story stopped being about evidence and started being about shock value. Reaction creators debated whether such a request would be reasonable. Commenters argued about morality. Others criticized the parents, even though there's no proof they said anything at all. This is the most dangerous phase of misinformation, when people start reacting to reactions instead of facts. At no point did the original clip demand a paternity conversation. That was added later by the audience. And once that layer was added, it couldn't be removed easily, because denying a rumor about cheating is hard. Denying a rumor about DNA is even harder. And correcting a rumor about parents you don't control, nearly impossible. This part of the story isn't about whether the tape is real or fake. It's about how quickly unverified footage can be transformed into life-altering allegations once the internet decides to escalate. In the next part, we'll break down why parents get dragged into scandals they never publicly commented on, how DNA test language is used as a weapon online, and why these rumors persist even when no evidence ever surfaces. There is no phrase that escalates an online story faster than DNA test. It sounds scientific, final, undeniable, and that's exactly why it's so often weaponized in rumors that have no factual foundation. Once that phrase entered the conversation around Erika Kirk, the story crossed from speculation into something far more toxic. Here's the truth most people don't realize. DNA language creates the illusion of proof without requiring any proof at all. The moment someone says DNA test, the audience assumes. There must be a reason, there must be doubt, there must be something hidden. None of those assumptions require evidence. They only require suggestion. In this case, the rumor claimed that Charlie Kirk's parents were pushing for a DNA test. That single word, pushing, implied urgency, fear, and legitimacy. But there is a critical gap. No statement from the parents exists publicly. No text, no audio, no filing, no confirmation. So why did people believe it? Because parents equal authority. When a rumor includes parents, especially in high-profile families, it feels more credible. Audiences assume parents act only when something is wrong. That assumption is emotionally powerful and frequently wrong. Another reason DNA rumors spread so aggressively is irreversibility. Once paternity is questioned publicly, the damage can't be undone. Even if the rumor is false, the doubt lingers. People remember the accusation, not the outcome. That's why DNA speculation is often used as a nuclear option in online conflicts. It ends debate by replacing discussion with suspicion. There's also a cruel efficiency to DNA rumors. They drag children into the spotlight without naming them. The harm is indirect but severe. The child becomes a concept, a question mark, instead of a person. And that's how boundaries disappear. In this situation, the leaked tape, unverified and contextless, became the launchpad. Viewers who already believed a cheating narrative saw DNA speculation as the logical next step. This is called narrative stacking. Once one accusation is accepted, more extreme ones feel reasonable. But logic here is backwards. Cheating allegations don't create paternity doubt. Paternity doubt doesn't arise from video clips. And parents don't demand DNA tests because of internet rumors. Those leaps only make sense inside outrage culture, not real life. Another reason these rumors persist is denial asymmetry. It's nearly impossible to disprove a claim about someone else's private thoughts or demands. How do you disprove that parents want something? You can't unless they speak publicly. And silence once again gets misread as confirmation. This creates a trap. Speaking fuels the rumor, silence sustains it. That's why DNA rumors are so destructive. They create allegations that can't be responsibly addressed without causing further harm. We also have to talk about profit. DNA speculation drives clicks. It triggers primal fears about lineage, betrayal, and identity. Reaction channels know this. Even when framed as discussion, the content benefits from repeating the rumor. And repetition is all a rumor needs. Once the phrase DNA test is attached to a name, search results change. Suggested videos change. Comment sections change. The rumor becomes part of the digital identity of the people involved, regardless of truth. This is why many critics are now pushing back, arguing that this escalation crossed an ethical line. Not because people shouldn't ask questions, but because some questions are harmful by default when asked publicly. Especially when there is no evidence, no official claim, no confirmation from any involved party at that point. It's not investigation. It's character damage. This part of the story isn't about deciding what happened. It's about recognizing how certain phrases, like DNA test, function as accelerants that bypass skepticism and trigger belief. In the next part, we'll look at why parents are so often dragged into scandals they never commented on, how family members become props in online narratives, and what usually happens when those families refuse to engage. When scandals escalate online, they rarely stop with the people directly involved. They spill outward, toward friends, former partners, and eventually families. That's exactly what happened once rumors around Erika Kirk shifted from a leaked clip to paternity speculation, allegedly involving the parents of Charlie Kirk. Families become targets not because they speak, but because they don't. Silence from relatives is often interpreted as strategic, suspicious, or complicit. In reality, families usually stay quiet because they have the least control and the most to lose. Parents, siblings, and extended relatives didn't choose public life. They didn't agree to be part of a narrative. Yet once their names are invoked, they're treated like characters who owe the audience answers. This is where the internet crosses a boundary. The rumor claimed parents were pushing for a DNA test. No quotes, no statements, no evidence, but the inclusion of parents immediately raised the emotional stakes. Parents symbolize protection, authority, and concern. When they're mentioned, audiences assume seriousness, even when nothing has been confirmed. Why does this tactic work? First, parents imply legitimacy. If parents are worried, people assume there must be a reason. That assumption fills the evidence gap. The audience supplies the logic the rumor lacks. Second, parents personalize the conflict. A relationship dispute can feel abstract. Family involvement makes it visceral. It invites moral judgment and emotional alignment. Third, parents can't easily respond. Speaking out risks escalating the story and violating privacy. Staying silent allows the rumor to grow. Either way, the family loses. Once families are dragged in, the narrative shifts from what happened to what kind of people are they. That's character judgment, not investigation. And it spreads quickly because it feels righteous. Another reason families get pulled in is credibility laundering. Attaching a rumor to someone perceived as respectable transfers that perceived credibility to the claim itself. Even if the family never said anything, their reputation becomes part of the rumor's scaffolding. This is especially damaging when children are indirectly involved. Paternity rumors don't just question adults. They destabilize a child's identity in the public imagination. The child becomes an object of speculation rather than a person deserving privacy. Families often respond by withdrawing further, limiting appearances, avoiding statements, and refusing engagement. Ironically, that withdrawal is then framed as evidence of guilt or fear. The cycle feeds itself. From a media perspective, this is a known escalation pattern. Unverified claim gains traction, family names are introduced, silence is interpreted as confirmation, pressure increases for a response, privacy becomes suspicion. None of this requires facts. What's missing in these moments is consent. Families did not consent to be characters. Children did not consent to be topics. Parents did not consent to have their private thoughts speculated about publicly. Yet online culture treats proximity as permission. This part of the story isn't about what families should do. It's about why they're placed in impossible positions by rumor economies that reward escalation over restraint. Once families are invoked, the story becomes harder to stop because disengagement is reframed as avoidance. In the next and final part, we'll examine what accountability looks like when family-based rumors go viral, whether retractions matter, and how these stories actually end once attention moves on. When a rumor escalates to the point where families are dragged in, the damage has already crossed from gossip into harm. At that stage, the question isn't whether the claim was proven. It's whether anyone will be held responsible for spreading something that never should have existed publicly in the first place. In the case that unfolded around Erika Kirk and the unverified DNA speculation tied to Charlie Kirk's parents, accountability didn't arrive with clarity. It arrived with silence. And silence is how most of these stories actually end. Online, accountability is optional. There is no requirement to correct a viral falsehood with the same reach as the original claim. No expectation that the people who amplified the rumor will issue a retraction. No mechanism to restore privacy once it's been taken. The system rewards impact, not accuracy, and impact is measured in clicks, not consequences. This is why family-based rumors are so powerful and so dangerous. They introduce people who never consented to public scrutiny. Parents, children, and relatives become symbols in a narrative they didn't create. Even when a rumor is later challenged, the association lingers. Search results don't ask whether something was true, they remember that it was said. When accountability does appear, it's often symbolic, a vague clarification, a comment reply, a quiet pivot to a new topic. These gestures rarely undo harm because they don't reach the same audience that consumed the original allegation. Corrections travel slower than accusations, and they don't trigger the same emotional response. There's also the problem of denial fatigue. Families and individuals eventually stop responding, not because they concede, but because engaging prolongs the story. Silence becomes a boundary. But online, boundaries are framed as evasion. That misreading keeps the rumor alive even when no one is talking. What actually stops these stories isn't justice, it's attention shift. Another headline breaks, another scandal trends. The algorithm moves on. The rumor doesn't get resolved, it gets archived. For the audience, that feels like closure. For the people involved, it's residue, something that resurfaces without warning years later, detached from context. This is the harsh reality. The internet is excellent at accusation and terrible at repair. True accountability would require clear retractions delivered with equal prominence, acknowledgement of harm caused to families and children, a commitment to verify before escalating private matters, consequences for repeatedly spreading false claims, but those steps don't perform well. They don't trend, and they don't satisfy outrage, so the burden quietly shifts to the audience. Every share, every comment, every reaction contributes to whether a rumor grows or dies. We like to believe we're just consuming content, but in moments like this, consumption becomes participation, especially when the content involves children and family identity. This story doesn't end with a verdict or a confession. It ends with a lesson about restraint, about recognizing that not every claim deserves amplification, about understanding that some questions, when asked publicly, cause more harm than clarity. And once family-based rumors cross into the mainstream, the only real accountability left is the choice to stop feeding them. Before you share the next explosive clip, ask yourself, if this rumor involved your parents, would silence feel like guilt or protection? If it involved your child, would just asking questions feel harmless? And if the claim turns out to be wrong, who pays the price? Because the internet doesn't refund reputations, it doesn't retract trauma, and it doesn't protect children by default. Drop your thoughts in the comments with care. Share this if you believe family privacy should matter more than viral moments. Clicks fade, screenshots last, and rumors don't ask permission before they hurt.